So much of magic, of the presentation of inexplicable events, comes down to switches. So many different kinds of switches in magic. And not just your traditional card switches or coin switches, but switches of ideas, switches of situations, all secret switches, which of course puts the magician farther ahead of the audience and allows you to do everything from transformations to prediction effects to so many other things. And the challenge with switches, of course, is it's one thing to do a switch that is indetectable. It's another thing to do a switch, and this is where Omnilope comes in, that's not only indetectable, but in fact, even as you do the switch, emphasizes a profound fairness of things. And I love that about this idea. It's funny how things, I find most of the magic that I really find engaging personally, the effects that I do for people and share that I find really engaging are often the ones that they find most engaging as well. No surprise, it all begins with you, the performer, so much of it does. And so many, many, many years ago, I used to collect stamps. And I remember having envelopes just like this. Just like the ones that I'm going to include with this tutorial, which have a big window at the front here. There we go, big window at the front. And, I've been obsessed with envelopes for many years, frankly. If you follow my magic a bit, you'll know that. And I love the fact that you have something like this. It's so neat, because first, you have containment, okay? With the flap, the close, the thing can be, I love the fact you can have something inside here with the flap closed, and there's a sense of fairness, of total containment. The magician cannot tamper with what's inside. It's all there. It's all contained. He can't get at it easily. I love that. Add to that a clear plastic window, and now you have something where you have all the visuals you want to sell, to convey, to communicate the notion of what you're doing and the impossibility of it. You get a chance now to have a window on the containment. So, because without the window, you still have containment, but then everything appeals to people's minds or their imagination. They have to create the images, which often can be very powerful. Implicit effects leave room for people's imaginations, which can be very powerful. But here you have an explicit element, which for me can add to, in this case, a very powerful sense of fairness. And so you have a device which, it makes sense to carry it in this. You see, this is unlike the traditional, the children's performer, the magician who does magic shows, kid shows, and has that crazy change bag, this big old change bag on it, which looks fun and visual and I think very young children like. But after a certain age, I'd say even after the age of 5 or 6, they get that funny looking bag is funny looking and is suspicious. This is the opposite of suspicious. There's nothing to see here. And I love that about this, the fact that it is essentially what I'm going to show you how to make from these envelopes, a change bag. It's very simple. It's not much to do, okay? And there's so many different effects you can do with this. But before we jump into the effects, let's just take a moment here. I'm going to put the camera down here. And I want you to see how really crazy, easy it is. So you've got your envelope here like this. And I'm just going to grab a piece of white paper here. My suggestion to you, though, is instead of using a piece of simple white paper, get a slightly thicker sheet of cardstock. I think that's going to serve you better in the long run. It'll last longer. It'll be absolutely opaque. It'll have a few different things going on. So I've just traced with a pencil the shape of the envelope, and what I'm going to do in this instance, so rather than taking it out and putting it back in and taking it out and making sure, I'm going to make it a little small for our purposes, just a little small, as you can see. So there I am. Now, take a bit of tape, and again, I'll give you some tips here as we go along here, but take a bit of tape here, all right? And if I take a bit of that tape, and I just do it like that, okay? Put that tape across the top here. Carefully slip this inside. What we do, I'm sure you've heard the black art principle. Well, there's a lesser-known white art principle. Basically, any single color or pattern that is put against the identical color or pattern makes for sort of an invisible item. In this case, an invisible, what am I doing here? In this case, an invisible, that'll be, I think, okay, invisible wall. Okay, there we go. So, that looks identical. Okay, that is, it looks exact same as it did a moment ago. But what I've created is a wall between two things. Vanishing fingers, oh my God, where does fingers go? I put a wall, so I can put stuff on this side, And I can even put stuff in between the wall here and the window. Okay, I can put anything I want in there before, of course, taping this shut. Anything I want in there. Now what this means is I can show you very fairly, okay? I can even kind of move it around like this and the items will shift inside, okay? I can show you I have, in fact, an envelope filled with X, and then I can hand this to you and ask you to take this, put this behind your back, and when you take this behind your back, and you open it up, and again, this is the most natural thing in the world behind someone's back. They open up the flap, they reach inside. There is nothing to give away the fact, okay? There's no tactile element that will give away the fact that they're, in fact, entering into a private, a secret compartment at the back here, which can be filled with anything I want. Typically, it's filled with identical items. Whatever's in here are duplicates, so that while they have a visual, they're convinced they have a choice of many different items. The reality is, when they reach in behind their back, they grab something from inside here, you're going to be a force. So this is an indetectable, down-to-earth, packs flat, plays big. You can use this for stage, you can use this for stand-up, you can use this for close-up. It is a very, very, very versatile gimmick. Now, let me share some tips and some ideas with you before we jump right into some of the possible effects. First, this is one of these things, like, to call very versatile is an understatement. There is no limit to the kinds of things you can do with this, all right? One tip I want to give you right off the top, though, is I typically keep mine on my setup with whatever effect I'm going to do with a clip here. Keep it all tidy and clean, a clip right there, all right? Now, notice, too, because I'm going to be sending you more than just one of the envelopes, you might want to, I don't think you have to, but you might want to switch, of course. You could set up the gimmick one and have an ordinary one, and the ordinary one's truly filled with all the different items that you're going to be using in here. And then after the person takes this, puts it behind their back, reaches in, grabs one, holds it in their hand, whatever, you take that back. If you're going to go for a pad of paper to reveal your prediction, if you're going to go for anything else in your case, super simple to take, as you lean in to get it, to just switch that one for that one in the hand. Would you hold on, just sort of casually hand that to someone, and you're done. You've done an indetectable switch, and after the fact that somebody, for whatever reason, wants to go through and make sure they all were really different, you're ready to go that way. The other tip, too, is when you hand this to the person, the gimmicked envelope, prepared one, and say, take this, and I want you to put it behind your back, and just on instinct, I want you to reach inside and take one out behind your back, which they do. Now, you can suggest they change their mind. If you want to put that one back in and take one out, totally cool. But make sure, and this is a key line I've learned the hard way, guys, when you save them, make sure you only have one in your hand. Double check, make sure there aren't two stuck together. I want to make sure your commitment is 100%, okay? 100% commitment, only one in your hand. Because when I was first workshopping this, if I didn't emphasize that, people would maybe by mistake have two in their hands and they'd see their identicals and the whole thing would just fall flat there. Okay, so emphasize that line. Make sure you only have one. I want full commitment. All right? Now, so that's the construction of the envelope. That's the suggestion of switching. Very simple, all right? Now, what effects can you perform with this sweet gimmick? There's a bunch, like I said. My favorite, personal favorite, is because I first saw these envelopes when I used to collect stamps. I like using stamps, which means at the front here, what I do is I have a whole bunch, 10, 15, 20 different stamps from around the world, 30 different stamps, and I have them in a pile. I also take a little bit of glue stick, and not up here, not too high, okay, but I glue a few stamps sort of because what you don't want to have, you're going to be using a lot of billets typically, pieces of paper. And if they're all stacked up, kind of, you're on the way to the gig and whatever and carrying the case, and when you take this out of your case, they're all sort of bundled up down in one corner here where only 3 or 4 you can really see, the rest are all behind, it doesn't have the visual impact of variety and fair choice. So what I do with most of the items I handle, and when using this, and I've used this for probably 6 or 7 different effects over the years, is I get a little bit of glue stick and I'll glue, say the stamps, I'll glue a stamp in the secret pocket, I'll glue some stamps in the window section inside. I'll glue a stamp here, glue a stamp up here, glue a stamp here, glue a stamp here, glue a stamp here, so that even if a bunch of them gather in a corner, there's still a bunch they can see the variety. So there's a tip for you there. So I like the stamps. I love using the stamps and saying I'm a stamp collector. I'm not really anymore, but tell them I used to collect stamps as a kid and I still kept the collection here from all around the world, and let's try something. You take that, reach inside, you got one stamp, just one stamp, I want full commitment, take it back. And now, if I forced a stamp from France, there's so many ways I can do this. I can reveal it with a loaf of French stick bread. Boom. I can reveal it with a sketch of the Eiffel Tower. Boom. So many different things, and I love the fact that a stamp, I bet you don't have any effects in your repertoire right now, close-up or stand-up. that use a stamp. Such an interesting, there's history around stamps, geography, of course, around stamps. There's so many things you can do with stamps, okay? What else? Other things I have played with, one of the first things I did do, of course, is playing card indexes. Grab an old deck of cards, cut off the corners of all the cards, so just the 1/4 of the cards with the index on it. Put those in the front there, and then you can have, it's a beautiful way to essentially force a playing card. But rather than saying pick a card like this, or in the traditional ways, you've got a whole bunch of either cut or torn pieces of card in here, and they reach in, and of course you force it, because in your special compartment on this side, you've got all duplicates, okay? So that's another way to go with it. I like the store receipt idea. I mentioned this in the preview to this, because it varies the medium. It's cool to be able to grab some change out of your pocket, hand to somebody and say, hold on to that. Or take a bill, okay? Let's say a $5 bill, say, and put the change inside there and ball the whole thing up. And now you have this interesting, curious little packet of stuff you hand to someone and say, hold on to that, we're going to try something here. This is how free are you? I'm going to be able to predict the future. I had a dream last night, and in the dream involved you, and what's your name? Yeah, that was the name, and da-da-da, and here, I think, even starting by saying to someone, can I give you some money? It's a great way to start into an effect. So, and of course, what you have is you have a bunch of receipts. You've gathered your receipts from the last, say, month. And the problem with the receipts, at least in Canada, is a lot of them are just on white. So what you could do is get a whole bunch of receipts and then go to a photocopy place and print them on gray, and nothing too vibrant, but it gets a little bit more color in there, maybe a gray and a cream and a white and a light blue and things. You've got a whole bunch of different receipts on this side. And on this side, of course, they're all identical. Okay, they're all the same. Now, in this instance, I think switching would be a very good idea, okay, because people can see this and they can see some of the different totals on the receipts here. That's great, but I think it'd be even more convincing. Now, notice, too, you might want to switch after the fact, not before. Something to be said for taking out an envelope full of receipts. You a lawyer? Can you do my taxes? You can't? Get a little bit of a chuckle there, hand them. Take a look in there. There are a whole bunch of different receipts for this, for that, for the other thing, right? Name out some of the totals. He's $235, $1425, $2712, and all these things. You break it back. Say, along with this, and you go into your case, and that's when you grab this. You say, I'm also going to use this, having just switched this for your force envelope, right? You give that to somebody, now somebody else can reach in. You're going to make sure that the force, the fact that the total there was $5.23, and when they open their hand, it's the $5 bill with 23 cents in here, or even you could have it in pennies to add to the drama. It's a little slow counting. But it's sort of, rather than just 2 dimes and 3 pennies, maybe you've got it broken down to some nickels and dimes and pennies. So in the counting, into a glass, say, click, click, adds up beautifully. In that instance, I'll tell you right now, I would be tempted to do the reverse. I would have someone select the receipt, they hold on to it, then have the person open this up and count $5.23, then go back to the person holding the receipt and say, open it up, okay, and so it all comes together in one boom. There's another way to do that. So that's receipts and change. That's with stamps, playing card corners. I know in the preview, I haven't used this handling in years, but I used to play with this idea of having a number on, so what you basically have is 4 or 5 different colors of paper, and they're cut in different shapes, like a square and a triangle and a rectangle, and then different numbers, 1 and 25 and 252, or maybe just 2 digits, 1 and 2 digit numbers. Anyway, the nice thing about that is it immediately shows color, color, color. There's red, there's green, there's blue, and because you've written in a Sharpie marker, they can see the 1 and the 5 and the 18, variety, You're also set up now to do 3 reveals. The rule of 3 is so powerful in magic and in theater. So once you've forced it, someone's holding their hand, you go, okay, I need a sense. I'm going to go for the color first, then the shape, then the number. Boom, boom, boom. So I'm getting and again, you got your notepad out and your color and like this and shape and cross it out, and I'm going to do a square there. Okay, I'm seeing 23 is square green, and they open their hand. It's green, it's square, and the number's 23. Okay, so it's a way to take this simple, because you're forcing one object, right, one item, but you're able to milk out of it 3 different climaxes or pieces of information or dramatic moments. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. Yeah, there's just so many things you can do with this. You'll play around, you'll have your own things. It's also beautifully customizable. if that's even a word. I mean, for a corporation, for a restaurant, for a bar, whatever brand you happen to be teaming up with or performing for, you can easily incorporate elements of that in this. It's so simple. Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, if you're doing something for a bank, then you could do different denominations of bills from around the world. You could be doing something for a restaurant, and it could involve hamburgers, hot dogs, french fries, a whole bunch of variety there. Or a receipt off the table, a bill, or coupons, receipts. It'd be kind of fun to have free coupons for a company you're working with, and so someone gets a chance to not only get a free coupon, but you predicted which coupon they'll get, the $15 coupon kind of thing. One last idea, though, is, of course, newspaper headlines. Okay, I mean, people care about news. They care about famous people. So, and again, you could have cutouts from a fashion magazine or a pop culture magazine where all you've done is celebrities, photographs of a whole bunch of different celebrities. The good thing about celebrities and news is people already care about that. Too often with magic, we take something dry. I'm going to do a trick with a pencil. Well, people know pencils. They're familiar. It's a good object, I think, to do magic with. How passionately do they care about pencils? Hopefully not too much, or they're a bit insane, okay? So as magicians, performers, we have to try to get people to care about what we do. That's job one. But if you're going to use elements that are photographs of famous people they already care about, or attractive women they're attracted to, or headlines, news headlines that people care about, politics, these are all things people care about. So that, again, in here, newspaper headlines from the last year, and then you reveal it. How you reveal it's really, I think, the most important part. It's the last part of the trick. So make sure your reveals are as creative as possible, okay? Don't just announce it or have it written down on a piece of paper. I think a sketch is great, but I think you can go further. That's what I suggested, that idea of forcing a stamp from France, and then you pull out of the bag a piece of French bread. A drawing of the Eiffel Tower is cool. A three-dimensional piece of food is more interesting, I think, ultimately, and will play larger. I mean, what's nice about this is it's a tiny little prop, but you can use this to really then present something that ends in a much bigger and more fun, dramatic, engaging way. There you have it. Whole bunch of ideas, easy to construct. Definitely one of those things that I think is super versatile. And so my personal challenge to you, I mean, I've presented you with a bunch of different handlings and ideas and routines and things. I think they're all strong. I think they'll all work fine for you. But this is a great place from performer to performer. My suggestion is try to come up with something original for yourself with this. Something that literally you'll be the only person in the world doing it. I think that's pretty cool. This is a very versatile prop and easy to adapt to whatever situation you like. And I bet, I'm just thinking of baseball cards that people collect. I'm thinking of what do people care about? Sex, drugs, rock and roll. I mean, there's so many. I mean, music. You could use it as a force of a song. A whole bunch of you clipped out a whole bunch of famous songs, and then to reveal it, you press play on some device you have, and it plays. I mean, it's so simple. So much you can do with this. So anyway, there it is. Have a blast with it. Use it, like I said, to tap into your creativity.